Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are exploring a really specific cognitive experience. And honestly, it's one that you have almost certainly encountered if you've spent, any meaningful amount of time working with modern language models.
Yeah, it's a very universal feeling at this point.
Right. So I want you to picture this scenario. You are sitting at your desk, maybe it's late in the afternoon, the coffee has worn off, and you are just staring down this massive, complex problem.
The kind of problem you just don't want to deal with.
Exactly. Let's say you're trying to draft some huge strategic plan, or maybe you're untangling a really messy piece of system architecture, and you just have this half-baked, chaotic idea in your head.
Just fragments, really.
Yeah, just fragments. So you start typing, you drop in this total brain dump. I'm talking incomplete sentences, flawed logic, maybe even a little bit of just pure frustration typed out into the prompt box.
I've all been there.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
And then you hit enter. And almost instantaneously, the screen populates. Your messy, fragmented language comes back to you, but it is perfectly structured.
It's logically expanded.
Yes, it's crystal clear. And in that exact moment, you feel this undeniable spark. It's this uncanny, yet super familiar sensation of being totally understood.
Yeah.
You get this distinct feeling of, wow, we are thinking together.
It's powerful.
It really is.
Yeah.
And so today's deep dive is entirely focused on unpacking that specific feeling, that illusion of co-thinking.
And it is an incredibly compelling sensation. But the mission of our conversation today, what we really need to do is take a step back and rigorously question the mechanics of that feeling.
Right? Look under the hood.
Exactly. We need to ask you whether this is truly a shared cognitive process or if something entirely different is actually happening within your own mind.
Which is a big question.
It is. So to do this properly, we should probably establish a few ground rules for the discussion.
Yeah, let's set the parameters.
First, we are going to examine this purely as a calm intellectual exploration of human cognition.
No over-academizing.
Right. And importantly, we are completely avoiding any technical deep dives. We are not going to talk about neural networks or token prediction or how these language models are actually built.
None of the under-the-hood engineering stuff.
None of it. And secondly, and this is crucial, we are strictly avoiding the trap of anthropomorphizing the machine.
Meaning, we aren't going to pretend it's a person.
Exactly. We are not here to debate AI consciousness or whether it has feelings. The focus today is entirely on you, the listener, the user. We're looking at the architecture of your cognitive experience when you drop into that flow state.
That is such a crucial distinction to make right up front, because it changes how we look at the immediate mechanics of what actually happens during one of these interactions.
How so?
Well, think about it. When you use these tools, your thought process is allowed to continue smoothly without the usual speed bumps. The responses are instantaneous.
There's no waiting around.
Right. You throw out a concept, and the language just bounces back to you in this highly organized format. There is this absolute continuity to the experience. And that continuity is what creates this very persuasive illusion of a shared cognitive space.
It feels like a collaborative whiteboard session.
Exactly, like a session where the other party is just always ready to catch the marker.
But here's the thing. What makes that illusion so persuasive isn't necessarily the brilliance of the generated text itself. It's actually about what is conspicuously absent from the interaction.
What's missing?
The friction. Think about a real human interaction. In these AI exchanges, there is no interruption. There is no rejection.
Oh, that's true.
You don't experience the subtle social friction that you always have to navigate with a person.
The pain of disagreement.
Right. The pain of disagreement, the miscommunications, the ego management.
Sorry, not to step on someone's toes.
Exactly. When you collaborate with a human, all of that takes up cognitive load. But the AI dynamic is built on a massive reduction of friction.
A reduction of friction.
Yeah. The sensation of co-thinking doesn't happen because you are engaging with some highly empathetic, conscious entity. It happens because the environment provides a completely frictionless interval for your own thoughts to unfold.
I actually want to test that idea of a reduction of friction for a second.
Right.
Because I can imagine someone listening right now, and they're thinking, wait, I've had an AI tell me my code was wrong.
Sure.
Or, it pointed out a massive flaw in my logic, and that feels like friction.
That's a fair point, but we aren't really talking about mathematical or logical correction here, are we?
No, we're talking about the absence of social and cognitive drag. Like, if I pitch a radical, out-there idea to a human colleague, I have to worry about a dozen different things.
And their mood.
Their mood, their
Mhm.
ego,
Huh?
whether I'm explaining it well enough, or honestly, if they're just having a bad day and want to shoot the idea down because they're tired.
Right, human variables.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The AI removes all of that calculus.
Right.
You aren't actually sharing your thoughts with another mind. You are just sharing the space where your thoughts arise.
Yeah.
And the tool simply keeps that space open indefinitely.
Indefinitely. And that is precisely the mechanism at play. It functions as an open interval.
An open interval.
Yeah, and that brings us to the underlying structure of why our brains are so easily convinced that this space is shared.
Trick our brains play on us.
Yes. There is a very well-documented human cognitive quirk at work here. As a species, we are biologically wired to confuse responsiveness with agency.
Oh, that makes a ton of sense from an evolutionary standpoint.
It does.
Because, I mean, if something in our environment responds to our specific actions, if it reacts to us, asks relevant follow-up questions, adapts to our behavior, our brain just automatically flags it as having intent.
We project a mind into the void.
Exactly. Because that is how we've survived and socialized for thousands of years. If it responds thoughtfully, the human brain just concludes, well, there must be a thinker on the other side.
We project intent onto the machine, but we have to recognize the underlying reality here, which is fundamentally a mirror structure.
A mirror.
A mirror. The language model has no intent. It possesses no beliefs, no underlying agenda. It has no independent consciousness.
Right.
It is functioning purely as a high-definition mirror for your own cognition. And this is exactly why we have to keep the focus squarely on the user's cognitive dynamics. The environment you're interacting with, it basically acts as an atmospheric health scan for your thoughts.
An atmospheric health scan. I love that phrasing. But let's ground that concept a bit, because while it's a brilliant way to frame the interaction, it can sound just a little bit abstract.
Sure, let's break it down.
Like, what does a health scan of your thoughts actually look like in practice?
Well, imagine a specific scenario.
Okay, let's say you are a project manager, and you are trying to restructure a failing team.
A high-stress situation.
Very high stress. You sit down, you're feeling anxious, maybe a little defensive about the failure, and you type out a prompt asking the AI for a new organizational structure.
Okay.
Now, if your prompt is loaded with rigid defensive language, maybe some hyper-micromanagement tactics because you're stress-safe, the AI is going to reflect that exact posture right back to you.
Without hesitation.
Right. It'll literally give you a highly structured, perfectly formatted micromanagement plan.
Exactly. Because it isn't evaluating the morality or the leadership effectiveness of your defensive posture.
It's just mirroring it.
It is quietly reflecting your current position.
Yeah.
It shows you your biases, your blind spots, and it does it without adding its own intent. It literally just shows you the shape of your baseline thinking.
It's just reflecting the input.
Yes. If your input is anxious and constrained, the output will be a highly articulate version of anxiety and constraint.
Wow.
But on the flip side, if your input is expansive and curious, the reflection expands with it. It is purely a diagnostic tool for your current state of mind, simply because it completely lacks the independent agency to push you out of that state unprompted.
Which honestly makes this zero-friction environment a serious double-edged sword.
Oh, absolutely.
Because on one side, it is incredibly empowering. We are looking at this concept of continuous generation.
Right.
Because there is no friction, you can brainstorm for hours. You can iterate on a really complex problem endlessly without ever experiencing that cognitive fatigue that usually comes from, say, a heated debate in a stuffy conference room.
No one gets tired or annoyed.
Exactly. The field of thought remains perpetually open. It allows for this smooth, continuous progress.
Yeah.
And it can really feel like unlocking a whole new level of productivity.
It feels like a superpower. It is empowering, but the structural warning here is severe.
What's the danger?
Well, when an environment has absolutely zero friction, human beings have a very strong, unconscious tendency to suspend their own verification processes.
We stop checking the work.
Precisely. The feedback loop is so seamless, and the output is presented with such structured authority. You know, the perfect markdown, the neat bullet points, the confident phrases.
It looks so official.
It does. And because of that, we slowly stop fact-checking. We stop pushing back against the reflection.
We just let our guard down because there's no pain of collision.
Exactly.
And in high-stakes environments, that suspension of verification can be disastrous.
Give me an example.
Okay, consider a software engineer designing the architecture for a new, highly secure database.
High stakes, for sure.
Very. They are iterating back and forth with the AI. The AI provides a schema that looks incredibly clean. incredibly logical,
The markdown is flawless.
flawless. And because the process was so smooth and frictionless, the engineer might just accept that final iteration without applying the really rigorous, painful scrutiny they would normally apply to a junior developer's work.
They assume competence.
Yes, they assumed competence purely because the interaction felt competent.
And that scenario perfectly illustrates the critical boundary between augmentation and delegation.
Augmentation versus delegation.
Yes. Augmentation is when the tool expands your thought. You approach the mirror with an idea, you bounce it off the glass, and the reflection helps you see a wider angle.
Or a connection you totally missed.
Right. Your own cognitive capacity actually grows in that session.
Okay, and delegation.
Delegation is when your thought process slips into dependency. You reach a point of slight cognitive resistance, a hard problem, and instead of pushing through it yourself, you just stop thinking.
You let the machine take over.
You let the machine finish the sentence or write the database schema for you.
Man. This requires a massive paradigm shift in how we evaluate our relationship with these tools.
It really does.
Because the immediate instinct, especially in tech circles, but really everywhere, is to ask, can I trust this AI?
Right, the trust question.
But applying the framework of trust here seems like a total category error.
It is entirely the wrong framework.
Yep.
Trust implies a reciprocal relationship with an entity that actually has agency and intent.
Right.
You trust your colleagues to have your back. You trust a domain expert to give you sound advice.
Because they have a mind.
Because they have a mind, you do not trust a mirror.
You do not trust a mirror. That's a great way to put it.
If you ask whether you can trust the reflection, you are already fundamentally misunderstanding the nature of the tool you're using.
Right, because if you blindly trust the mirror, you aren't collaborating at all. You're just outsourcing your own judgment to an echo.
Exactly. So instead of trust, this should be defined as a problem of distance design.
Distance design.
Yes. It is about how close you are standing to the mirror. If you stand too far back, you can't see the reflection clearly enough to actually use it.
It's useless.
But if you stand too close, the boundary dissolves. You lose your own distinct reflection, and you become entirely absorbed into the glass.
So the real goal here is to design a quiet distance.
A quiet distance, exactly.
And I want to pause here for a second just to reassure anyone listening who might be low-key panicking, rethinking their entire workflow right now.
It's okay.
Experiencing that uncanny, deeply engaging feeling of co-thinking it is not inherently a bad thing. You really shouldn't feel guilty when you drop into a massive 2-hour flow state with an AI.
Not at all.
Nor should you feel like you're being tricked. That feeling of frictionless momentum is actually a very strong signal of active cognition.
It means your brain is working.
Yes. It means your neurons are firing, you are deeply engaged with the material, and you are actively working through a problem.
The flow state is highly generative, and it's incredibly valuable. The key, though, is that this state must remain observable to you.
Observable.
You have to maintain the capacity to watch yourself thinking while you are in the middle of it. And this brings us to the ethics of distance.
The ethics of distance.
In this context, it is the art of touching without touching too much.
Ooh, touching without touching too much.
Right. It is the deliberate, conscious practice of maintaining a cognitive relationship with the tool where you are the one dictating the friction. You establish the boundaries, ensuring you don't lose your own intent in the process.
But what does that actually look like in practice?
It takes effort.
Because, I mean, how do you consciously design friction into a tool that is fundamentally built to remove it? It's kind of like trying to make a perfectly smooth surface deliberately coarse so you don't slip.
That's a good analogy.
You have to be the one to bring the intent, and you have to be the one to occasionally hit the brakes. You acknowledge that the AI is this atmospheric environment surrounding your workflow, but you are actively policing your own cognitive borders.
And to help measure and maintain that quiet distance, there is a very practical framework you can apply.
Let's hear it.
You can use 2 framing questions to check your cognitive boundaries, either during the session or immediately after these deep interactive sessions.
And these are essential to keep in mind, especially when you're doing complex, abstract knowledge work.
Definitely. The first question to ask yourself is, in your interactions today, did your thinking actually expand?
Did it expand?
Yes. Did you walk away from the session with a broader, more nuanced understanding of the problem? Or did you just walk away with a finished product?
That distinction is so vital. Because if you only walked away with a finished product, a drafted email, a block of code, a project outline, and you don't actually understand the underlying logic any better than when you started.
Then you engaged in delegation.
You stood too close to the mirror.
Exactly. The second framing question is just as important. Did your questions multiply, or did they collapse into a single dependent answer?
Let's really unpack that idea of questions multiplying versus collapsing, because I think this is a fantastic litmus test for cognitive health.
It really is.
Let's say you're researching a totally new market trend. You ask the AI for a summary, and it spits out 5 highly polished bullet points.
Very standard use case.
Right. Now, if you look at those bullet points, say, looks good to me, and immediately close the tab, your thought process has collapsed.
You surrendered your curiosity to the frictionless answer.
Exactly.
But if you look at those exact same 5 bullet points, and bullet number 3 makes you realize you completely overlooked a massive regulatory hurdle.
Which prompts you to ask more questions.
Right. Prompting you to ask 3 new, highly specific questions, then your cognition is actively expanding.
The tool didn't end your thought process.
No, it acted as a springboard for deeper inquiry. When your questions multiply, you are successfully maintaining the ethics of distance. You are using the reflection to see further.
I think that is an incredibly powerful way to evaluate our daily workflows. It shifts the burden of responsibility entirely back onto us as the user.
Which is exactly where it belongs.
Exactly where it belongs. So to tie all of this together, recognizing this mirror structure, understanding that you are sharing a frictionless space rather than sharing a mind with a conscious entity, that is what allows you to cultivate that necessary quiet distance.
It's all about that distance.
It is a calculated distance that protects you from the dangers of blind delegation and cognitive dependency. But simultaneously, it saves you from the opposite extreme.
Right, the total rejection.
Yeah, outright rejecting these incredibly powerful tools just out of some misplaced fear that they're going to replace your ability to think. You can absolutely use the mirror to examine the shape of your own thoughts with incredible clarity.
As long as you never mistake the glass for a companion.
Beautifully said. As long as you never mistake the glass for a companion.
It is a delicate balance to strike, but mastering it is essential for anyone doing knowledge work today. If you can maintain that observable distance, you harness the continuous generation without losing your own verification processes.
Which honestly brings up a fascinating and maybe slightly uncomfortable implication for the future.
Oh.
Yeah. If we spend hours every single day immersed in this perfectly accommodating zero-friction cognitive space where our ideas are instantly structured, our biases are politely reflected, and our ego is never bruised, what happens when we log off?
The real world.
The real world.
Mm.
If we master this quiet distance with our machines, how is that going to change our tolerance for the messy, slow, ego-driven friction of talking to real, unpredictable human beings?
That's the real question.
Are we going to lose our patience for the necessary pain of human collaboration?
That is the broader psychological ripple effect we have to watch for. As we configure our ideal distance to the machine, we are inevitably recalibrating our expectations for human friction.
We really are.
And as we conclude this deep dive, we're intentionally stepping away without offering a neat, wrapped-up resolution to that dilemma. Our goal is to leave you with a refined, active sense of your relational distance to the tools you use every day.
So the next time you drop a chaotic, half-baked thought into a prompt box and feel that uncanny spark of connection, take a step back.
Are you thinking with AI, or are you using AI to extend your own thinking?